Someone cooked here.
Hello everyone, so not sure if you've seen this yet, but the Turtle WoW dev team just dropped a public message aimed straight at Blizzard Entertainment. I've said it before, Turtle WoW isn't perfect, but one thing I've never doubted is that its creators genuinely love vanilla World of Warcraft. And while this message of theirs, their comeback to the Blizzard lawsuit if you will, isn't perfect either, we'll talk about that later, don't worry, it's honestly pretty damn good. It's a bit too long to read out here, but if you want the full picture, pause the video and read the pages for yourself. If you don't want to do that, no worries, I'll cover the important parts as we go. Before we jump in though, here's the fastest recap possible. Turtle WoW is a vanilla-based private server that offers a Classic Plus style experience. Recently, they hit some crazy milestones, over 500,000 players worldwide. Then Blizzard finally stepped in and sued the Turtle WoW team. Almost certainly because they're working on their own Classic Plus project. Blizzard has every right to protect the Warcraft IP. That's fair. But the way they handled this has left a lot of people, myself included, pretty sour. Instead of trying to cooperate or bring the devs on board like they did with Nostalrius, Blizzard went full on war mode. So naturally people see them as the bad guys. We don't know all the details, so it's hard to say how much of a villain Blizzard actually is. But they look bad for sure. Turtle WoW just responded and they make some very good points. Ones that make Blizzard look even worse. So let's get into it. The first two paragraphs aren't that interesting. They basically talk about how passionate the devs are and how invested the players have been. The usual, we love our community and our community loves us kind of stuff. They do mention that Turtle WoW has DJs, and they do have DJs, and it's an awesome feature. Sounds weird until you try it, and then you see how cool it is. Anyway, here's one little line I actually liked. They mention that no matter how players choose to play or what they do, their progress over time is always valued and maintained. To me, that sounds like a direct jab at Blizzard, because the only two things Blizzard has done for Classic are Season of Mastery and Season of Discovery, both of which completely fail at being MMOs on a fundamental level precisely because they're seasonal and delete that progress. That one line alone feels like a polite fuck you hidden in corporate wording. The whole response is full of subtle digs like that and I love it. But the third paragraph, that's where the things actually get a bit more interesting. They write this: many successful games have a modding community. It's a part of gaming culture and a testament to the game's quality and the community's passion. Then they follow up with this: unfortunately, unlike other studios, Blizzard does not yet have a framework that allows projects like ours to operate without risking legal conflict. With that in mind, we respectfully ask that Blizzard consider establishing a formal ecosystem for licensing fan-run community servers. And they're absolutely right. Having people want to mod your game is something only truly great games achieve, and vanilla definitely qualifies. And then they point out that many studios actually work with their modding communities, while Blizzard of course goes to war with theirs. They end by asking Blizzard to consider building a system that would allow this kind of fan creativity to exist safely. Again, they don't outright call Blizzard a greedy, soulless machine that can't see past its own nose, but politely, by mentioning that other companies figured this out years ago, they basically say it without saying it. Now the next page is easily the best one, because this is where they start naming names. Comparing Blizzard to other companies that actually collaborate with their modders and give legal access to their IPs. They mention MMOs like EverQuest, which has private servers legally permitted by Daybreak Studios, and City of Heroes, which is also allowed to operate by NCSoft. They bring up massive Minecraft servers like Mineplex and Hypixel, and of course the king of modding, Bethesda and Rockstar, both of which go out of their way to reward modders who use their IP to create content that keeps their games alive for decades. But the best part, the final hit, is that they save EA for last. EA, one of the greediest, most hated companies in gaming history, and yet even they support Kyber, a fan-run community project. But here's the thing, they're not wrong. Working with modders is the smartest move from any angle. If your goal is noble and you want to give players the best experience possible, it's the right call. If your goal is money, it's still the right call. All these examples work with the studios that license them. They share revenue, they avoid wasting millions on pointless legal battles, and they don't destroy their reputation by attacking fans who are literally keeping their games alive. The weirdest part though is the Minecraft example, because Minecraft is also owned by Microsoft, just like Blizzard, which means that this whole lawsuit isn't some higher corporate policy thing. It's a Blizzard thing, 100%, and that's what makes it even worse. And the only explanation for this decision is that the people making it barely understand gaming at all, let alone MMOs or especially Classic WoW. Now the last page of the letter, that one's basically a closing statement. The Turtle WoW team says they're open to any licensing structure that works for Blizzard and that they look forward to the day Blizzard embraces this opportunity. That's brutal. That's basically them saying, we'll wait until you come to your senses, Blizzard. They literally called this whole thing an opportunity they give to Blizzard. Keep in mind, Blizzard invoked the RICO Act against them. Yeah, the RICO Act, the thing created to take down the mafia. Blizzard is basically arguing that Turtle WoW is a mafia-style organization exploiting their IP. And the Turtle WoW response, we'll be here when you calm down and realize you should work with us. That's insane. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but to me this whole thing makes Blizzard's case look unbelievably shaky. It was already common knowledge that this would be a tough fight, considering Turtle WoW is based in Russia or somewhere around there, but goddamn. And finally, the last thing in the letter, their contact address. That's how they end it. Amazing. Anyway, before we get into the stuff the Turtle WoW team did that I did not like, I just want to say overall, this is a killer response. Even if they go down, which they still might, they're going down in a blaze of glory. And honestly, the things they propose, they're right. Totally right in principle. But there are a few problems. First one, I didn't like how they tried to make it sound like their goal is just to reach a niche community of players who want this specific kind of experience. Come on, everyone knows what they're doing is full-blown Classic Plus in every way. That's not a niche, that's literally what millions of Classic players have been asking for. They already have over 600,000 players. And that's while being a private server which alone scares off a ton of people who would have otherwise loved what they've built. What Turtle WoW is trying to do is nothing short of going big as they can. And I wish they'd just admit that, but I get why they don't, because if they did, Blizzard would immediately have a valid argument in, you're not a small community project, you're direct competition that's a real threat to our future plans. And Blizzard is also right, because at the end of the day, it is a bit hard to ask Blizzard to support private server that's already gone full throttle and is absolutely competing with what Blizzard themselves are likely developing right now. Second thing I did not like, they completely skip over some real problems that still need answers. Let's say Blizzard makes a deal with Turtle WoW. Where do they draw the line? Just Turtle? Or do they include Project Epoch, Ascension, Bronzebeard? How many? If you start giving everyone permission to make their own spin on the same base game, it becomes chaotic. The cannibalization in that space would make it very volatile, possibly unprofitable, and miserable for the developers involved. And MMOs are a different beast entirely. The two MMOs that they used as an example, like City of Heroes or EverQuest, don't really have an official live version anymore, so it is very easy for them to give fan projects the green light. Blizzard, on the other hand, does have an active, alive MMO, and that changes everything. Then for companies like Bethesda, it's also very simple. You can mod Skyrim however you want, but you still have to buy Skyrim from Bethesda. It's not like there's another company publishing a fully rebuilt, live service version of Skyrim. Skyrim is single player, not an MMO, and it's been released 14 years ago. A whole different scenario. And if Blizzard did make a deal with Turtle WoW, let's be real, that would nuke every other current private server overnight. Turtle WoW would explode. Players would flood in because it's basically an official server now. The hype would go insane, and Blizzard's own Classic Plus would be competing against a fan project they just legitimized. Depending on how you look at it, the killing of most other private servers could be both a win and a huge problem as well. They also conveniently fail to acknowledge something pretty important. Blizzard doesn't really have a choice here. They have to protect their IP, that's not optional. Yet the letter frames it like Blizzard's just some cartoon villain, twirling their mustache and suing for fun. It's more complicated than that. For all we know, Blizzard could have already tried to reach out, and they just got ignored and refused. Unlikely, sure, but we don't know. The Turtle WoW devs act like what they're doing is totally fine. It's not. You advertised like crazy, you monetized, you celebrated, and you've taunted Blizzard on social media repeatedly. Yes, Blizzard is scummy, but come on, this isn't a charity project. Most of what you're using isn't even yours. You're profiting off their work, breaking their legal rights, and at times not being exactly subtle about it. You could definitely tone it down a bit. At the end of the day, most of Turtle WoW is still made of mostly stuff they didn't work for. And this last part is totally personal, so take it with a grain of salt. But I don't even like Turtle WoW that much. Maybe don't like is too harsh actually. But to me, it's nowhere near the full potential of Classic Plus. They've made some weird, very un-vanilla design decisions that most people seem to ignore. Things like heavy monetization at some points, faster leveling, much faster leveling, and a bunch of small changes that add up to something that doesn't really feel like vanilla anymore in some aspects. So if Blizzard actually delivers their own Classic Plus, or if somehow both coexist, we're stuck in a kind of lose-lose. Either Blizzard's version doesn't live up to what it could have been, or we get two competing visions splitting the community in half. And when that happens, both games suffer. I have no idea how this will play out, but honestly I doubt much will change. The best case scenario remains the same. It would be Blizzard shutting Turtle WoW down, then hiring the devs to help build Classic Plus, reusing some of what they've already made and using their understanding of vanilla to guide the project, because the current Blizzard team doesn't understand vanilla. So let's be real, that's basically impossible and will not happen. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps me out. And tell me what you think in the comments, because I genuinely want to hear your take on this one. Till next time, peace.